Good evening. Hi, this is John Haller. I'm just going to wait about 15 seconds because um, um, to make sure somebody give me a thumbs up that you can hear me, and I'll go. So sorry for what we're gonna, and we'll try to talk about. Thank you. Okay, so I always am kind of hesitant when we do these things as to is it going to work? Is it not going to work? So I've got a few things I want to talk about tonight. I have a bunch of graphics and everything, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to avoid a lot of them. But there are a couple things that I want to talk to you about. So you may have remembered. Let me see if I can share the screen on this. One of the things I've talked about. So what I want to talk about tonight, I want to talk a little bit about AI. I want to keep this to like 30 minutes. I've just done about an hour interview with a Christian radio station in Alaska. I'm not sure. I'll post it when that plays. So what I want to do is I want to remind you of something that I've been. I want to talk a little bit about AI. And I apologize for looking away from the camera and everything, but it's my staff here is a staff of one, and I have to. Let's see, entire screen. Okay, so you might remember I've talked about this concept of a thing called, yes, I'm going to try 30 minutes, my friend. Ha ha ha. A thing called the panopticon. Now, I have a master's degree in correctional administration from Indiana State. I did work in the federal prison system part-time while I was in graduate school at the federal penitentiary in Terre Haute, which is they've upgraded it to a death thing that's where Timothy McVeigh was executed. So there was this concept that developed in the development of how you take care of prisoners, this thing called the panopticon. And this is a picture of it. This is one I kind of made up to look like the tech panopticon. And it's a thing that a lot of people are talking about. It keeps coming up. The New York Times brought it up last year, the digital panopticon, because we're under surveillance all the time. And this is a very, very big deal. And so the concept, Jeremy Bentham, I believe was his name, was the guy who developed this back in the 1800s. And the concept was they would build this big circular cell block, and they would put a tower in the middle where 1, 2, or 3 guards would stand. And the guards could see into every cell. And so the people were the prisoners were trained or led to believe that they were under observation 24/7 at all times. Very oppressive what they're doing. Well, now the concept has been taken over into the tech world, and now people are calling this the digital panopticon because we're under constant surveillance. If you don't think this is happening, there was a number of articles, and I can't remember exactly where I saw it this week, where people have been getting their new car insurance, auto insurance bills from their insurance companies. And these bills, the rates are going up 20, 30% over what they were before. And so people have gone to their insurance company and said, hey, why is my insurance rate gone up so much? I'm a good driver. I don't have any speeding tickets. I haven't had any accidents or anything. And the one insurance company told the guy, hey, listen, here's the records we got from your car manufacturer. And they handed him like 400 pages of all of the driving that he had done over the last year. And it said, well, on this day, you braked hard 2 times and you went over the speed limit and we think you were following too closely. And so you're not a safe driver, so you're a bigger risk, so we're going to increase your rates. And this is what people are doing with all of this data that they're mining from us everywhere. And so this was something the guy never thought of. It wasn't like, my phone, it was my car who's selling me down the river, so to speak. Now, people will say, well, you should just not drive unsafe or anything like that. So it should not be a problem. But this is what's happening. And I do think when we get into Revelation 13 and the mark of the beast technology and surveillance and all of these things, understand there's very little chance to have privacy in the world today. Now, on the one hand, a Christian could say, well, God knows everything that I do anyway. Okay, well, that's God. I don't want people pretending to be God. But there was a very good article. Look at this article. This was the graphic from the article about the digital panopticon. And I think it's one of the best graphics I've ever seen. The article was, let me see if I can find the screen for this. To stop that screen, go to this one. And here you go. The title of the thing is Net Zero, the Digital Panopticon and the Future of Food. And so this is where this is going. And I mean, I think this thing is off the charts. Now, I'm going to try to play a 4-minute segment of an interview that Joe Rogan did the other day with Ray Kurzweil. I think it was just yesterday that he did this. So let me see if I can, let's see, I got to go back here to how do I share this? Stop screen, present, share screen, whoops. Chrome tab. Let's see here. And I'll tell you what, let me do this. Excuse me one second. I thought I had this set up the right way. Window. Chrome tab. No, not the right one. So I need to go back here. I had to share a video file. Sorry, folks, bear with me for just a moment. And I will go here to... Okay, so listen to the. If this doesn't play, somebody tell me, hey, it's not playing. And so here we go. This is Joe Rogan interviewing Ray Kurzweil. He's the guy who's the Singularity, works at Google. He's the one who has predicted that man and machine are going to merge in the near future. But I want you to listen to what he says. It's about a 4-minute segment, and look at the data chart that he presents. So here we go.
Invented moves. Yeah. AI's invented moves that have now been implemented by humans.
Right.
In a very complex game that they never thought that AI was going to be able to be because it requires so much creativity.
Right. Arthur, we're not quite there, but we will be there.
That's Kurzweil.
By 2029, it will match any person.
That's it? 2029? That's just a few years away.
Well, I'm actually considered conservative. People think that will happen like next year or the year after. But I actually said that in 1999. I said we would match any person by 2029, so 30 years. People thought that was totally crazy. And in fact, Stanford had a conference. They invited several hundred people from around the world to talk about my prediction. And people came in, and people thought that this would happen, but not by 2029. They thought it would take 100 years.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that, but I think people are amending those. Is it because human beings have a very difficult time grasping the concept of exponential growth?
That's exactly right. In fact, still economists have a linear view. And if you say, well, it's going to grow exponentially, they say, yeah, but maybe 2% a year. It actually doubles in 14 years. And I brought a chart I can show you that really illustrates this.
Is this chart available online so we could show people?
Yeah, it's in the book.
But is it available online, that chart, where Jamie could pull it up and someone could see it? Just so the folks watching the podcast could see it too. But I could just hold it up to the camera.
Pull it up on the pictures they sent. What's it called? What's the title of it?
It says price performance of computation 1939 to 2023.
I have that.
You have it. Okay, great. Jamie already has it. Yeah, the climb is insane. It's like the San Juan Mountains.
What's interesting is that that's an exponential curve, and a straight line represents exponential growth. And that's an absolute straight line for 80 years. The very first point, this is the speed of computers, it was 0.0000007 calculations per second per constant dollar. The last point is 35 billion calculations per second. So that's a 20 quadrillion fold increase in those 80 years. But the speed with which it gained is actually the same throughout the entire 80 years, because if it was sometimes better and sometimes worse, this curve would bend. It would bend up, bend down. It's really very much a straight line. So the speed with which we increased it was the same regardless of the technology used. And the technology was radically different at the beginning versus the end, and yet it increased the speed exactly the same for 80 years. In fact, the first 40 years, nobody even knew this was happening. So it's not like somebody was in charge and saying, okay, next year we have to get to here, and people would try to match that. We didn't even know this was happening for 40 years. 40 years later, I noticed this. For various reasons, I predicted it would stay the same speed increase each year, which it has. In fact, we just put the last dot like 2 weeks ago, and it's exactly where it should be. So technology, and computation is certainly a prime form of technology, increases at the same speed. And this goes through war and peace. You might say, well, maybe it's greater during war. No, it's exactly the same. You can't tell when there's war or peace or anything else on here. It just matches from one type of technology to the next.
So what you see there is that, so let me share the screen here and get rid of that. Go back here to a little bit of my presentation. This AI is everywhere. It's intruding into everything. I do think this is part of Mark of the Beast technology and that type of thing. And it's so you heard Kurzweil in that talk, and he said that, so this is somebody summarizing it, AI will achieve human level intelligence by 2029. We're not quite there, but I think AI will be on the level of one human being. It'll be as smart as a human being. That's what Kurzweil said to Joe Rogan yesterday. Elon Musk then tweeted this: AI will probably be smarter than any single human being next year. By 2029, AI is probably smarter than all humans combined. Now, that is it's crazy how fast this is going to go. So I think we need to be paying attention to this, that this stuff is going to grow really exponentially. So let me stop that screen. So let's talk about Israel. And we'll try to make this short. So I don't have any more interviews, I don't think, scheduled this week. I have some people I'm trying to get, Seth Brantzman and some other people in Israel, David Weinberg, and some other people, because Israel's really right now kind of on the verge of things really going sideways. So there's pretty good evidence and testimony that Israel may be going into Lebanon in the next few days. They've been talking about that. So that's that's something you need to, pray for the peace of Israel, pray for the safety of people over there. Whatever they've done in Gaza, where they found hundreds of miles of tunnels instead of like 160 miles of tunnels, they found probably over 500 and much more extensive and deeply embedded than they ever thought. They're saying that what they suspect in southern Lebanon is much worse. So there's about 120,000 people in southern Lebanon that have evacuated their homes. Israel's been destroying whole villages. They've taken out 70% of some towns or villages. There's about 60 to 100,000 Israelis that have evacuated their home and moved south into hotels in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem and elsewhere. And they just can't live like this. I saw a good interview with Sarit Zahavi from Alma Research about a month ago, and she said, maybe it's not 2 months ago now, and she said, listen, we can't live like this. We have to be able to go back to our homes. We're a small country. We have to be able to live in all of Israel, and we cannot live like this. And so something has to be done. So some of the early research that I saw, like intelligence reports and that type of thing, indicated that there might be 18 to 25,000 civilian death casualties in the event of a war with Lebanon. Now, I don't think that was. I don't think that is going to happen because they've evacuated so many people from the north. But the tunnel system may be more extensive than what they found in Gaza. And Gaza is the most deeply embedded, sophisticated terror base in the world. The U.S. continues to put pressure on Israel. I'll talk more about this on Sunday. The U.S. is wanting to erect this pier portable port to bring supplies into Gaza, and understand that, but need to understand that, I just don't think that if the United States was in a war, any other country was in a war, that people would tolerate helping the enemy. And so this nonsense that we see, this continual narrative about the two-state solution. There's already a two-state solution. There was a two-state solution proposed over 100 years ago. It was Jordan, Transjordan, east of the Jordan River, and Israel and a Jewish state west of the Jordan River. And so now we're not talking about two states. We're talking about, we have Jordan and Israel, but we're also talking about Palestine and Gaza. So we're talking about a 3 or 4 state solution. And I just think the U.S. needs to butt out. I don't think this will go well for us. I know that they're trying to do this. I agree with the comment that Biden's trying to look like he supports Israel. He's trying to play to his crazy left-wing base, like AOC and Rashida Tlaib, and to try to get and try to get the votes in Michigan and other places. We're in for a very volatile number of months until the election takes place in November. So if you have any quick questions, put them in all caps, and I'll try to answer a couple. But if not, I'm going to try to maybe terminate this. So you need to pay attention to what's going on in Israel. Let me just go through a couple things. Like this morning, I wrote up, or as I woke up and I thought, well, maybe I'll do a midweek update. So I just started going through my news feed, my Twitter feed, and all of a sudden I had like 40 stories. So there is a threat assessment that came out. It's called hang on, I'll pull it up here, the Annual Threat Assessment of the U.S. Intelligence Community. And what it says, I'll talk more about this specifically on Sunday. But one of the things it says in there is that Netanyahu's on his way out. I don't know that that's the case. Some of the polling indicates that if the election was held right now, Netanyahu might actually, in his coalition, might pick up seats. So this threat assessment says, well, Netanyahu's going to go. So remember that we have artificial intelligence, we have the U.S. intelligence community, and it's never called the U.S. wisdom community. It's the intelligence community. So it's a bunch of talking heads that think they know things. So here's a good question. Let me show this one. Well, this is one. That's the wrong one, but I'll answer that one. Is this Israel war, where it talks about Israel being surrounded by Arabs on all sides? Listen, I think there's a series of wars and things that are going to happen here as these things kind of play out. I don't think we're there yet for some of these more specifically prophesied in scripture wars, but I think we're sort of in the alignment phase that all this thing is going to happen. Here's another question here. Will the IDF take off the gloves or do more surgical strikes? Back in 2017, there was a security conference at Herzliya, the Herzliya Security Conference in Israel. And at that time, the head of the Israeli Air Force, I've played the video a number of times. He said, listen, if we go into Lebanon, it will be shock and awe like you've never seen. I do not see how they do anything in Lebanon if they go in that does not make Lebanon look like Gaza. This is a war. And by the way, David Weinberg on the IDSF briefing this morning, Israeli Defense and Security Forum. It's at 11 a.m. You can sign up for it at IDSF. I think it's .co.il.org. Israeli Defense and Security Forum. Google that, because you might end up with something that's similar, an acronym. But sorry about that. There we go. I don't see how they do not go into Lebanon and just turn it into Gaza. Weinberg talked this morning about this concept of proportionality. You see all these people running around, Israel's violating the laws of war because it's not proportional. No, proportional under the laws of war is that you're allowed to do whatever it takes to defeat to neutralize the threat that you're faced with. So we need to stop with this nonsense that, they killed 1,300, so you kill 1,300 and stop. That's not the way the laws of war work. And by the way, I would highly recommend that you go to Caroline Glick's program on JNS YouTube channel, JNS, Jewish News Syndicate, JNS, Caroline Glick. She interviewed a guy from West Point, and there's also a good article at Tablet Magazine, Tablet Mag. You can find it. And in that magazine, in those articles, it says Hamas, they're cooking the statistics of people who are killed. For example, they're saying that any Hamas person that's killed is a civilian. They've lost no combatants in this war with Israel. So it's all a bunch of lies. It's all a bunch of propaganda. And I think that Israel has no choice but to go into Lebanon. They cannot live like this. But the question is, what, we talk about the day after they defeat Hamas, and they'll beat Hamas. But what does this look like going forward? I mean, this has been 40, 50 years of a couple of generations of children being taught to hate Israel, to be terrorists and that type of thing. This is in the school. In the schools in Gaza, there's an organization, I think it's out of one of the Scandinavian countries, called Impact-SE, IMPACT-SE. Look it up, and they have like examples of all the things that are being taught in textbooks in these Palestinian schools. It's unbelievable. So how do you undo that? Okay, now look, we know that the Lord returns and things get wrapped up and all that. But I'm just saying is, the secular world to say, well, how do you get rid of this ideology? So you need to pay attention to Lebanon over the next few days, and you also need to pay attention to the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount will be a fairly volatile area. We know that they store things in the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, and they throw them over the side down on people in the Western Wall, the Kotel Plaza, where they're praying. There were some Jewish people that went up on the Temple Mount, and they're just walking around. There's Al Jazeera, the New Arab, all these Arab newspapers are saying, oh, they're storming the Temple Mount. They're storming Al-Aqsa. It's all a bunch of propaganda. It's very volatile. They're now in the month of Ramadan, and everybody says, well, Israel can't attack during Ramadan, but nobody said a word about Hamas talking on Simchat Torah at the end of the Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. Nobody said, well, they shouldn't have attacked then. Did anybody criticize them for attacking on Yom Kippur back in 1973? No. So it is the height of hypocrisy. So I don't think the death statistics in Gaza are as bad as they say. I think that this starvation thing is I shouldn't say this because this is the pot calling the kettle black. As you know, I'm a very large man. And there was this kid who they said starved to death in Gaza. He had cerebral palsy and died. But his mother was bigger than I am. Okay. So she's not starving. Okay. She's getting by. So we need to analyze these things very carefully as we go on. So watch the Temple Mount. There's going to be a lot going over there over the next few days and up in Israel. So let me just check questions real quick, and I'll see if there's anything else. Do you think the Jewish leaders have an idea? Here's a question: where the Ark of the Covenant is? Maybe buried deep under the mosque. Okay, so there's a number of theories where this is. Some guys, some people associated, I think, with the Temple Institute think they got very close to a chamber where the Ark of the Covenant was under the Temple Mount. I do not know if that's true or not. Others, there's an archaeologist, and I'll be honest with you, I don't give him a lot of credibility. His name is Ron Wyatt. He's passed away. I claimed that it was under the skull where Jesus was crucified. And I don't think there's any evidence to support that. Sorry. I know people believe him and want to believe him. I just don't think that that's the case. And then some people like Bob Cornuke, Chuck Missler, and others, there's been some documentaries on it, think that the Ark of the Covenant may be at this church in Aksum, Ethiopia, and they make a pretty good case for it. I don't know that they need it. Okay, they didn't have the ark in the Second Temple period, so I don't know that it's necessary. It certainly would be a big game changer if somebody came and said, "Hey, here's the ark." That would be a very significant thing. But anyway, so that's what I think. We just check a couple more questions here. Apologize if I don't see them all. I don't have a staff here. Okay, so yeah, so I don't know if the ark will be there or not. It's not necessary. It always comes up, and this question about the temple and the rebuilding of the temple and how does that take place. And I don't know, maybe there's an errant rocket from Hezbollah that takes out the Dome of the Rock or something like that. If you remember back during the Gulf War, the first with with Iraq back in the 90s, Saddam Hussein was throwing these Scud missiles into Israel, and when that happened, the rabbis, the Orthodox, would run to the Western Wall, to the Kotel, and pray that that a rocket would hit it, take it out, would solve a lot of their problems. So anyway, so listen, I'm going to sign off. I don't know how long this has been, and 31 minutes and 40 seconds. So I appreciate you looking. So Sunday we're going to talk about this Department of National Intelligence report. Here's one story. I got to say this one. This is just absolutely crazy. So this popped up in my feed. I'll just read it. I forget the news service that this comes from. South Africa's foreign minister says any of her country's citizens who fight in the IDF or alongside them in Gaza will be arrested when they return home, deepening the rift between the nations after South Africa laid accusations of genocide against Israel at the United Nations top court. She also encouraged people to protest outside the embassies of what she called the 5 primary supporters of Israel and its military action in Gaza. She didn't name them, but almost certainly she was referring to the United States, the UK, and Germany, among others. And this is the way that this is going. This is just absolutely in accusing Israel of genocide when the population of Gaza has been growing all this time is crazy. And by the way, I'll just finish this. Somebody said, didn't they find the ark in Turkey? Different ark. If you want to know an ark about that size, go down to the Ark Encounter in Kentucky, and you can see a life-size replica of the ark and walk through it and everything. It's huge. That's the Ark of Noah. We're talking about the Ark of the Covenant. So anyway, listen, I really appreciate you all listening, and I appreciate that you follow the channel, like, subscribe, share. I think that I'm going to do, I don't know if I'll do my live Q&A with Tom Hughes next Tuesday. I know he's in Israel right now, so that may or may not take place, but I have some other interviews that I'm scheduling that'll be coming up next week. Enjoy it. Great weather here in Ohio. Hope you're having good weather wherever you are. Thank you. God bless. And we will see you Sunday. Thanks.